Hey friends,
Hi everyone.
today we're coming to you from sunny Miami. I've got Pavel here with me. He's our partner and works with us on projects right here in the city. And today we're excited to share one of those projects with you. Let's talk investments, because Miami is known for attracting people from all over the world who want to put their money here. So make yourselves comfortable, it's going to be interesting. Miami is developing very actively right now. A lot of investment is going specifically into private development. Our client is a perfect example of that. He is a real estate agent and he's also the investor in his own project. In other words, he really knows this market inside and out. We've got a great chance to sit down with him and have a chat. But first, let's give you a quick rundown of our project as a whole. The big idea, our approach, and how money really works here. In Miami, people usually make their money through real estate. The first thing you notice when you walk up is that the house itself looks pretty plain. It doesn't really stand out from the others around it. What does catch the eye, though, are the two side wings that stick out a bit. One of them is meant to be a garage, but it's really small, definitely not big enough for a modern car. In that space, there's actually already a cozy bedroom. As you can see, the problem here is that this bedroom has a window like this. In today's world, when we're used to seeing large panoramic windows, this just doesn't work at all. But there is a nice feature here, including a small canopy like this. Yeah, right now it's not the most visually appealing, it feels pretty dark. But as an architectural idea, I actually think it's interesting. Having a small courtyard between the two wings creates privacy for the main area. Of course, the way it was built is really outdated and doesn't look great anymore, but I can definitely see a lot of potential here. If we're going to really dive into our reconstruction plans, I want to start with the basics. What reconstruction actually means. The truth is, there are a lot of common problems and mistakes people make just from lack of experience. And the number one thing is making sure reconstruction doesn't accidentally turn into building a whole new house from scratch. So what's the situation? A client comes in with an old house and says, I want to do a reconstruction. And then they start listing their wishes. Well, my roof is leaking, I'd like to fix that. The windows are drafty, let's install modern ones. Naturally, we'll redo the finishing to freshen up the house. And in the end, all those wishes and heartfelt ideas really add up to that one moment where you just want to say, my friend, it would be easier for you to just demolish this house and build a new one. It would be cheaper. In the end, some people genuinely listen to us and build a new house, while others simply do not. But the ultimate conclusion is always the same. During the construction process, people often admit it probably would have been easier to just tear it down and start fresh. The cost might have ended up about the same, but then you'd have a brand new house, without all the headaches that usually come with reconstruction. And if we talk specifically about our house, the silhouette of the house, yeah, it basically hasn't changed much. We even kept the existing roof here. We preserved all the structural frames here, meaning the load-bearing walls and windows. All of that has been preserved. We played with the thoughtful extensions to this house, one at the front and one in the spacious backyard. And of course, we also played with the exquisite finishing of the entire house. So, by slightly altering and transforming it, we managed to achieve a completely new, modern and cool house. In terms of atmosphere, while still preserving about 90% of all the load-bearing structures, all the floor slabs, which allowed us to significantly save on the budget. Let's go step by step. Starting with the front part. For example, we already had a good idea from the previous architect because there were two blocks, one garage block and one bedroom block. And between them, there was a very deep niche where the entrance to the house is hidden, which in my opinion, it's an interesting design choice. It adds variety to the facade and gives it a more private feel. We especially liked the glass entryway to the house, so we decided to keep that idea. The problem here was the garage doors, which is easily solved by making them larger, and now you can actually drive in here. A modern car fits quite well in terms of its size. And the second big problem here was the privacy of the bedroom block. There were these small windows facing the street. Yeah, they let in some natural light into the bedroom, but it was uncomfortable to be in such a room. It was quite dark, and there was no nice view because the windows were set rather high. What did we do? We added an office section to it. key office space here works more like a public area. And as you can see, we designed a completely separate entrance just for it. That way, you can easily welcome clients. For example, if you're a psychoanalyst, your clients can come straight into your office or their sessions without ever having to walk through the main house. They can leave the same way too. At the same time, this extra space let us tuck the bedroom behind it, giving it a lot more privacy. In addition, like I mentioned, this extension completely changed the look of the building. We added a flat roof over it and extended the frieze, which now hides the pitched roof of the original structure, plus the modern finish of the materials, plus large windows. Add in modern finishes and big windows, and now from the street you see a beautiful modern home. You'd never guess it was actually built back in the 60s. From the perspective of layout solutions, houses from the 50s or the mid-20th century aren't that bad. Personally, I actually like its layout because we have this cool, recessed entrance with large panoramic glazing and a glass door. Next, we go inside. Our favorite rule is that as soon as we enter, we immediately see the inner courtyard. There's also this separate little room with a split level. It looks really nice. From the hall, you walk straight into the living room, which feels just right. There are no walls blocking the view, so you see it right away. It feels completely natural where to go next. In this part, we've set up a cozy sofa area with our favorite thing, the TV. The frame TV, which truly looks like a beautiful painting. It looks really cool. And right over here, we have the spacious and inviting dining area. Behind these small walls, these partitions, is the kitchen. This is probably the only bit of old-fashioned thinking and a concept that's no longer used, that you actually need doors to the kitchen. And that's probably the only thing we ended up giving up in our overall layout when we were planning the full renovation. And as we keep going, you can see it here too. There's this circular flow, which I really love in a layout, when you can reach the same space from different paths. We end up back in the hallway. There's a really nice design touch here, a little green corner by the entrance that gives the space a homey vibe. The ceiling is a bit lower too, which makes it feel extra cozy. Here we've got what you could call the quiet zone of the house. This is where the bedrooms and the bathroom are, so let's head into the master bedroom. Like I mentioned before, I think there just isn't enough natural light here. Even during the day, you need to turn on the lights because the windows are so small. It was probably the right decision to make them 20 inches thick back then for the sake of saving energy, some kind of energy efficiency vector, but today that's really unnecessary because there are energy efficient windows that preserve cool and at the same time let in a lot of light. And now we're in a rather unique room called the Florida room. Here we have a space with sliding lightweight glass partitions that can be fully opened in the summer. And it's more like a patio where you can sit and enjoy the cool breeze. Well, let's take a closer look at what our beautiful courtyard looks like and what can be done with it. Our courtyard isn't very big, but its biggest advantage is this dense green wall that separates us from the neighbors. It completely blocks the view, so you don't see anything beyond the property line. Here, probably the most significant and notable change was the substantial increase in the shared living space. If you expand the overall square footage of a house in this way, that is usually the single most important factor to consider. With any renovation, if you increase the square footage, you can ask for additional money for those extra square feet. And that's exactly what we focused on here. We added spacious bedrooms and a functional office area, definitely the most valuable square footage. Because if you were to add something like a fancy home theater or a huge billiard room, not everyone really needs those. But bedrooms are always in demand, and the more bedrooms you have, the higher the value of the home. We also add bathrooms to this list. And in some cases, it's also great to count fireplaces. As the size of the house increases, it's important to expand the common areas of the house, because sometimes there are serious mismatches. A small kitchen, a small living room, while at the same time there are 5 bathrooms and 7 toilets. What really helped us here was having a Florida room, a very popular feature back in the day. Nowadays, people are more and more often bringing that space into the main layout of the house, and that's exactly what we did. Thanks to this room, we were able to expand the size of our common area, So we ended up with a large kitchen and a spacious living room, and now it matches the scale of the expanded house. The most important thing we did in the backyard was add 2 primary bedrooms, one on the first floor and another one upstairs, accessible by the stairs. These 2 primary suites are simple yet impressive. In the old house, all the bedrooms felt a bit cramped, short on space, with not enough bathrooms or proper walk-in closets. Here, we designed large, truly spacious rooms with their own private bathrooms and generous walk-in closets. Now you can really call them full primary suites. So, I think we ended up with a great modern layout, especially in relation to the inner courtyard. Yeah, basically we just brought it up to the standard that you find in any new house today. So now we have a wonderful barbecue area, a refreshing small pool, and a comfortable place to sit and relax peacefully, and some lounge chairs. So it's basically the must-have set for any modern home, the way people should be spending time in their backyard. And as the cherry on top of it all, we also have the second floor terrace. We were able to successfully add it above the new extension, so we could comfortably afford to create this beautiful terrace. What I really love about the second floor terrace is that they are completely private and secluded. Yeah, since all the buildings around us are also single story, when you step out onto the terrace, you can't be seen from ground level, so basically you could even sunbathe naked there if you wanted. And since it also opens directly from the primary bedroom, you can really play up that aspect here. You know that perfect picture everyone dreams of, stepping out in the early morning with a hot cup of coffee onto your spacious terrace, settling in and enjoying a good book. Mornings really are such a peaceful time. You don't have to go anywhere, and at the same time, all these thoughtful additions, especially this beautiful terrace, give the home a fresh new feel and a whole new way to enjoy it. So, Pavel, let's talk again about the construction of the house. Maybe you can walk us through in more detail how our different architectural options really differed from each other, and more broadly, how people usually approach renovating historic homes like this.
Overall, it was quite interesting for us to work on this project because it's not entirely typical for us. There wasn't a client here designing it for themselves or their family, so from that perspective, there really weren't any clear requirements. Instead, we had to focus right from the start on a broad audience of potential buyers, since the client was approaching this project as an investment. His goal is, on the one hand, to add as much value as possible, and on the other, not to spend more than necessary in order to maximize profit. Very often, investment projects like this are done in a simplified way, repainting the facade, fresh paint inside, a new kitchen, maybe new tiles in the bathrooms. But overall, the house stays the same, just looking a bit fresher. That approach doesn't bring high returns, and the more property prices go up, the harder it becomes for people to make money from flipping houses. We approached this project a bit differently and tried to create additional value for it. At the same time, we explored quite a few options for the house itself, starting with a small extension like adding an extra bedroom in this part of the home, up to options with an overhanging cantilevered second floor in this part of the house. In the end, though, the client decided against the cantilevered second floor, since the goal was to follow a quicker scenario. In investment projects, the speed of turning over capital plays a huge role, and the client wanted to complete this project as quickly as possible in order to move on to the next one. For this project, we offered the client several options to choose from. There is also another option where we build an additional part of the second floor above the garage. This was a simpler task since the garage walls were already in place and there was a foundation underneath. That made it much easier to add a second floor on top, which gave us an extra bedroom, a walk-in closet and a bathroom, increasing both the square footage and the value of the house. We also had several options for working with the facade, ranging from a plastic and geometrically complex design to a simpler and more minimalist one. And at the moment, out of all these options, the clients are choosing the one that will ultimately be implemented. And a bit later, we'll be able to talk to our client and he will tell us more about the numbers he sees in this project. In fact, architects often prefer working with clients who are building projects for themselves because in that case, the budget isn't as strictly limited. But even in projects like these, we see a professional challenge, and it's quite interesting.
Today we have a great opportunity to talk with the owner of that property. Today with us Jesse and Joe. Joe is a real estate agent. My idea to talk about the type of investment projects. Let's start with a general question. Is the Miami market still growing up?
Yes, I think Miami market is continued to prove itself if you look at historical data, and especially if you get into the single family housing market, it continues to appreciate. We have great weather. We have a lot of influences from politics, so people moving from other states, and it continues to grow.
Low taxes.
Right, similar. We've got a favorable government on that side of things, so that does help to continue. The demand stays steady.
All right. Speaking about the general idea of the project that you're doing at the moment, what is on this type of project, what is considered to be like usual profit? Because different people, they have different anticipation of the flipping houses, reconstruction, new construction. What would you say is normal?
True. I think it's probably a little bit too vague of a question, because there are house flippers that just do full-time spec flips and they're on the lower side. And then there's projects that, take a lot more time, and you have to consider the time part of money as well. I don't feel comfortable saying an exact return. I think it depends on the developer, but in our project, we're doing this for a little bit of our own use, but also with the hopes that we'll add enough value that someone will see what we've done and want to pay a premium for it.
Of course.
How you estimate the final price for the project? I mean, you obviously compare with others, with neighbors, or maybe the county, but it's hard to tell what you should do with in terms of remodeling. I mean, you could just paint the walls, cover new floor, and that's it. Or you could, demolish everything and raise a new house. So how you decide that?
Yeah, so you do start out with the data, like you said. We'll look at the comps, but I think also the unique approach to what we're doing is really focusing on the design, which is why we partnered with you, was to bring a different influence to the Miami market. I think a lot of things look very similar. So we want to push the boundary a little bit on how our project is going to show to the end buyer. And we'll look at comps, we'll look at valuations. But the beauty about houses is you also can give it a certain value that can't be seen in black and white. And that's the feeling, that's the experience when you walk through it. So we'll add premium to our pricing for what we think we're adding. And the market will tell us when we launch it.
From which point that premium things like visual appealing things start work? Because in the bottom market, people think only about price per square feet or something. And where is that point when they wanted some extra?
Yeah, and Joe, maybe you can tap into this, but I think in my opinion, just working with a lot of buyers is what are the unique features that you cannot find anywhere else? Because then that's where you can create your own value. And then I also look at not just things that have sold, what is currently active and available. So if someone were in a buyer's shoes, what other houses in this price range or in this area would they be looking at? And then, some of it's an art about pricing. Like, what do I feel? Because I also, whenever time we do a project, truly envision myself living there. So it's not always about the price. It's not always about the return, but it's also like, how would I feel if I ultimately had to live in the house myself? And then, we price it on that. How much would we expect to receive to let it go?
Yeah, I love that answer. Not only architects talking about, art stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to marketing, there's many different things that realtors can do. I think one of the first things is starting with a three-prong approach, which is doing a Compass private exclusive when we have this type of product, because it's so unique. It's such a personal home, if you will. So what that does is it allows us to do what the builders do. So we have this inventory, it's off market, it's not accruing days on the market, there's no public price drops. And what that does is it allows us to market it internally, get feedback from the brokers. Maybe they have a client who's interested in just doing it off market. And through that, we get a lot of insight on the pricing strategy, staging, so on and so forth.
We can test it. Compass has a lot of tools that allow us to test pricing and test strategy before fully launching. That's a great use of that tool.
For your own project as an investor, you chose single family house, not condo, not multifamily, which is very popular among investors at the
Yes.
moment. Why would you say so?
So I'm primarily a multifamily broker. So ironically, that's my bread and butter. And I still invest in that. But I really believe in the single family housing market of Miami, primarily, like I said before. Miami is growing as a city. We're still very young compared to other cities. And there's a huge population that is migrating here. And I think that that will continue to push single family values up higher and higher. Every market's going to have dips and highs with interest rates and other influences. But historically, if you look at the data, single family housing in Miami has always grown consistently higher than condos. And I would argue multifamily, but there's a lot of other metrics there with cash on cash and cap rates from income. So I think on the housing side, why we chose to, we want to live in it for a little bit. We do want to enjoy it, but we also feel like the upside potential on the resale can vary much greater because it's not limited to the typical metrics of commercial.
And in terms of return of investments, what kind of project you can say that is a successful project?
Successful. Success has a wide range of definition. You could be very profitable, but have spent 3 to 4 years to get there. And then I don't know if you would still say that's a success. So I think it's hard to measure that. I know a lot of people that do this full time, and anything over 25% is considered success and done. It depends on the product. It depends on your goal, really. But I think the time factor for me is the biggest lesson because I'm still relatively new at the development side, and I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, painful lessons, expensive lessons, but it's success to me is a new definition than it did last year.
You know that we trying to do the same things and looking for the property right now. Maybe you can, give us some advice in terms of your, experience in that. And
definitely. I mean, I want to do it again as well. So I'll join you. And my strategy, if I was staying in single family, is to look at the core and go within a 15-minute drive of that core and identify pockets of single family houses. I would even go into duplexes or townhouses and try to target end users and focus on areas that aren't tapped out. I mean, a lot of Miami markets are, and a lot of markets have a lot of developers going into them. But I think the reason why we chose Belle Meade is because it's so walkable. And I think I lived in a condo for many, many years, and I loved having restaurants and cafes downstairs. There are few neighborhoods that you can truly say are walkable. And I think Belle Meade is one of them. I think like the Grove, as you go down Biscayne Corridor towards downtown, there's a lot of pockets there that are still, to me, haven't seen their full glory, and there's a lot of opportunity within there. Play it right with timing. Right now is a great time to be a buyer and lock something up for the next cycle. Joe, do you ever want to add to that?
Yeah, what I'll add is just those opportunities that might not be there. So maybe finding a pocket in those areas that are zoned for like a multifamily, but there's a single family house on the lot right now. So maybe there's some opportunities to acquire that, demolish the house, and then actually build those multiple units when it comes to like a multifamily deal.
True. Yeah, that is true. The zoning is important.
Thank you guys for your opinions, for your
I think we're gonna have a nice project and a good case in the future.
I think so too.
Successful.
Successful.
Forward to it together. I really want to align ourselves with you and bring that more to Miami. So
thank you guys.
So, what conclusion can we draw from our project overall? The first main point is the eco-friendly approach. We try to recycle old materials, preserve them, use them in every possible way, and this also allows us to save. At the same time, there's the budget to consider. And I believe that this kind of approach to renovation often gives you more margin than building a brand new home. Of course, that only applies when the value of the land itself hasn't grown fourfold, because in that case it may indeed make more sense to replace the old house with a huge mansion. The only real drawback to this renovation scenario is time. No matter how you look at it, you'll spend more time at the planning stage. It's crucial to bring in a construction company or an engineer early on, right at the stage of choosing a house, to carry out a proper structural inspection. They'll tell you what's in good shape, what can be preserved, and what will definitely need to be replaced. I honestly think this is the future. What we see here is exactly that kind of smart solution. And honestly, I want to thank our client for coming to us with this concept from the very beginning. Right from the start, he said that we wouldn't demolish the entire house, but it also wouldn't be flipping. That's the kind of project we ended up with, and it's currently in the implementation stage. If you're interested, feel free to reach out. We would be happy to tell you more in detail. And in general, if you come across any interesting ideas or older houses that could be thoughtfully renovated, please feel free to send them our way. We'd be delighted to review your specific cases and suggest suitable options. After all, our main mission is to create truly beautiful and functional architecture. We'll certainly stay in touch and look forward to sharing our upcoming projects with you. See you next time. Bye!